She's sweet, she's salty, she's smart and craves chocolate every day. Here is your host, the Greek goddess of comedy, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sweet and Salty with Ellen Karis. I am your host, Ellen Karis. Yes, I know. Hang on to your hat. This is 2 weeks in a row that we have a guest. I know you don't have to listen to me blather on and on about what's pissing me off. I'm very, very excited. I've actually tried to get this young lady on for quite some time. She is the busy bee. I just want to let everybody know that it is Thursday, September 5th, 2024, and want to wish all the kids a great back to school and everybody in college. I wish I can go back to college. I would live in a dorm and eat off a hot plate just to have that experience again with the knowledge that I have now, of course. But anyway, I'm excited because our guest, I can't really keep up with her. She is a stand-up comedian. Yes, you know, I love my stand-up comedians. And I got to meet her in November of 2023 when I was on our friend Carol Montgomery's show, Funny Women of a Certain Age. And we use that term loosely, by the way, just, so don't ask. And I saw this young lady. She was hilarious, really energetic. I feel like we made a connection. And then I'm like, I gotta have you on my podcast. So that was what, 10 months ago. So as you can see, I'm incredibly organized. But without further ado, please welcome my guest, stand-up comedian. She is also a host of many game shows and also a host on a network that's pretty famous. Helen Keaney, thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Hello, everybody listening. Are you on YouTube or is it just people listening? Can people see us too also?
We're going to put this on YouTube. It's audio and video. And
you're fancy. You are so tech. Like, did you go to school for like computers, engineering software or something?
Okay, so before we came on, if for anybody watching on YouTube, my background is blurry. And Helen said, "Oh, I wish I can do that," which I can show you. It is literally like a button on Zoom. And she said I was tech savvy, and I told her that I could kiss her on the lips right now. I'd leave my husband for her at this point. That is the best compliment. I don't care about my skin, my hair anymore. I know I'm falling apart and I'm rotting from the outside in. But that is like the best compliment because sometimes I feel like a fraud. I feel like a tech fraud that even when I'm using like Word, I was like, I really don't know how this works.
Oh my gosh.
But
I get that. I never had a real job where you needed to learn how to even turn a computer on.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband's actually works in the computer business and he's like, are you just pretending that you don't know these things? I'm like, no, I actually don't know. I mean, I'm educated. I just never had any computer interaction. And I feel like everything that I do now has like a social media element and it's just so outside what I'm good at.
It's beyond. So let's just take it back for a few minutes. So you're originally from New York?
Yes.
You are a New Yorker, right? Are you from Brooklyn?
Yes.
Where are you from exactly?
So I grew up actually in upstate New York in Binghamton. My mom and dad are both college professors at SUNY Binghamton, but I moved to New York City, Manhattan when I was 19 to go to acting school at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then I stayed in New York and I finished my college degree at Hunter College at 68th and Park.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's my neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Right there. Mm-hmm.
So I lived in New York. I started in New York. I started at the Boston Comedy Club. I was at the comic strip. I was past at the comic strip, but there was a big moment in the early days. I worked at Stand Up New York and Dangerfields, which I'm not even sure if that's still there. I feel like all the comedy clubs I work at are no longer in business, but
no.
Yeah.
Comic strip is still there, just to let you know. Same owner. I mean, the owners have passed away, but Richie's wife had taken it over. Dangerfields, for anybody that wants to know, Dangerfields had closed right at COVID. I actually was there like a couple of days before the major shutdown that we had here. And then it was vacant because he was ready to retire, I think. Anyway, yada, yada.
All right.
And I know who that landlord is because they're not very nice. But anyway, long story short, these two guys came in. So it's called Rodney's. And
Oh,
I'm sure they must have gotten some kind of permission to use that name. Caroline's has closed. Boston Comedy
yes.
Club, as you know, is no longer there. But there's a bunch of little things down in the village.
Yeah.
Comedy
Well,
Cellar.
I worked at the New York Comedy Club when I decided I was going to kind of try to start going back to New York, which is when I met you. And I had some friends put me on their show. Michael Costa is a buddy of mine. He put me on his show at the New York Comedy Club, and I did a couple of shows. I have another friend, Jason Solomon, who put me on his show. And then I kind of, I guess, passed at that club because the booker said that I could come back and work there. And then I did Carol's show. But the clubs that I was the main, like was my main thing, weren't really there anymore because I moved to LA. And then I only worked at the Improv. And of course, Bud Friedman is no longer with us. So basically, he was like, don't work any of the other shitholes, only work for the Improv. And then I go back to LA. My daughter moved back to LA, and I don't really know anybody there anymore. I have a buddy who runs the social medias at the Comedy Store. And I guess that's the place now, but I'm not really there enough to kind of have a presence. I mean, I worked at some of the places that I used to work in the old days.
So, but you live in Florida now, though, right?
Yes, but I lived in LA for a long time too. That's where my daughter was born, and I lived in LA for years and years and years.
So,
Another decade I lived in LA. I moved from LA for a job in Florida as a host on HSN.
HSN. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just, I'm very fascinated at the people that left New York and went to LA. I never had the chutzpah to do it. And at the time when I started, and by the way, there is a familiarity to you. So I feel like in my early days, I met you someplace like maybe Boston Comedy Club or something. Like I used to get all the time. Like I feel like I never leave my house anymore. But I used to be out all the time. And I remember, and this is also when there was like a real pilot season and we, had networks, and it was such a different time. I tried to explain it to young people, younger people. And it wasn't like that long ago. It was like, we're talking about like a century, but it feels that way.
It does feel that way.
But I just couldn't. And so I had a career as an accountant and a finance analyst before I did this. And then and I was doing it also at the same time. But so that was like a little hard to, to leave the paycheck. But even still, like I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And again, I don't know, I mean, the chances of anything happening, I don't know. I'm not blonde. I'm not perky. I've got this ethnic look, and ethnicity started to get cool, like, in the last 5, 10, 7 years, not as much back then. But anyway, so what was that like? So you went, you were like, I'm going.
Well, you're not wrong about the ethnicity thing. My maiden name is Rosenthal, and my natural hair color is dark. And when I was in New York, I was told that I was too ethnic to do anything but like a spaghetti sauce commercial. And then I married this guy. I've been married like bunches of times, but my first husband, I was only married for 4 months, but his last name was Keaney. And when I changed my name to Keaney, and it was not planned this way, but I started getting highlights, I immediately started working constantly on television. And I don't know if that was a coincidence, but I saved his last name as a stage name. And I don't think you're wrong. I mean, again, young people cannot believe that you couldn't work if you were considered ethnic in those days. But that was 100% true. But I was living with a boyfriend. This is after that. And we broke up in New York City, and I was kind of homeless. I put all my stuff in a storage unit, and I was with an agency that had a LA office. And I went to LA and basically slept on my agent's couch for a week in LA, and I just never went back to New York because within a couple of days, I got a pretty big job, a pilot to host a show for Disney. And then I got a Disney deal, a holding deal. And then I started booking commercials, and I just started working. Wow. I mean, it was the thing that I'm good at, which is hosting, and there was lots of work then. I was young then, and it was sort of like right place, right time kind of thing.
What did you have? Are there any commercials that we might have seen? Anything?
Oh my gosh, I've done so many.
Like a national level, on a national level?
Hundreds. I used to, I did I did a bunch of campaigns, like I did Starkist tuna, when they launched the Starkist tuna, it used to be in a can and it became in a pouch.
Right,
And I
right.
did a whole series of commercials, and you can Google it on YouTube, and it's all over. And I did a lot of man on the street type commercials for like fast food chains and the Dr. Scholl's. I did a whole Dr. Scholl's campaign. I did a lot of like mom, like mopping, cleaning, kind of. I did car commercials, just you name it.
So you say,
I did over like 150 commercials that I completely supported me and my family at the time for over a decade doing commercials
oh, right,
in
I was going
LA.
to say, I mean,
But
you
that business doesn't exist anymore
because.
because of streaming.
Mhm.
Because commercials used to work for you work for one day, and then you would get residuals for a year. You'd make like 40 grand, 30 grand in residuals from one day of work.
It was
That doesn't exist. That's those days are over.
when I got in, I remember I took a bunch of commercial classes, and I remember an agent saying to me, "Well, you're ethnically ambiguous." And I go, "What the hell does that mean?" I'm like, "I'm Greek. Like, where does that?" And they like they don't even know, like, didn't barely even knew what that was. And like, and so it's like, it's like, well, I guess, maybe, but I never really fit into any box. I don't look exceptionally Italian. I don't look exceptionally Latina. I mean, the most I look is Greek, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, commercials was all about a look. And I remember too, redheads booked a lot of commercials.
I think that I would say the thing that helped me personally the most was my ability to improv comedy. If
Mhm.
you're good at improving and comedy, I think and again, this business, I don't think it really exists in the same way anymore. I'm sure some people do commercials still, and there's some, but I think it's non-union and production has moved around the world, and it's a whole different ball of wax.
Right. So when you were in LA, is that where you started to hone in on your hosting skills? And did you do
No,
stage
actually, when I
shows?
was in New York,
Mhm.
I was an open micer, and Barry Katz, who owned the club, recommended me for this show on Comedy Central called Short Attention Span Theater, and I started hosting that show on Comedy Central. I was literally an open micer.
Oh my God.
The second time I was ever on stage, I won a contest at the Boston Comedy Club, and David Tell was the MC. And when he left hosting that Monday night, which is maybe where we met, they gave me the job. So I hosted the Monday night open mic, or, whoever happened to be that night. I mean, any given night, it was like Jon Stewart, Caroline Ray, Louis C.K., Sarah Silverman, uh, Kevin Brennan, Neil Brennan, his little brother, would hand out flyers. Jeff Ross, who had a different name back then. I mean, it was like a different time. It was like all these people hung out at this place, and I emceed the Monday night, which was their kind of open mic. But I think about open micers now, it was different. Like you had to have some game to be an open mic, to
Right.
go on that. It was
Right.
it was such a different time. It's hard to even explain. And
So
you get it though.
I know, I totally get it. I loved Boston Comedy Club. I did a lot of bringer shows there, and I'm sure I went to the open mic. And just, to compare it to today, and just kind of how we opened with the whole thing about tech. Because I have this conversation at least 15 times a week, is the whole landscape has changed in comedy, and people are getting booked at clubs, and you see it because you actually do work clubs,
Yes, I
from
do.
a clip. They've made a character of themselves, and I'll just use this as an example. And actually, this guy's pretty successful, and he's funny, but he was a stand-up, so he had stand-up. This guy, Scott Cease, he does like the angry person that works in a furniture store, like, whatever thing, but he was good, like, not all of them are stand-ups. They just found this funny character. They do these 30-second clips. They're like, there's a lot of, I'm not looking to disparage women, so calm down, everybody, but there's a lot of Italian women that do like making sauce, making chicken cutlets, but they're all like working, like there's this, they fill seats somehow. They get their find their little niche, and we aren't used to, even still to this day, even though I will do a video, I'm not, sometimes I'm okay, I'm into it. And sometimes I'm like, why do I have to do this? I get angry about it. You know what I mean? It's just like, I want to enjoy the moment. I want to have to post my, eating or whatever, but you have to constantly put content out there. And I think that takes away from like sitting down and writing, because the one thing that hasn't changed is there's 24 hours in a day, and you need a certain amount of time to sleep and shower and eat. So the same time is still the same. I don't know where everybody gets the time to do this. And then also you need a staff with you. Like, I don't know how people do it. I'm assuming they have somebody that does it for them. So I have a husband, my husband also, my husband has a corporate job. And aside from the fact that his life is the opposite of this, it's all numbers and meetings and, golfing and, and more meetings and working late and closing deals. And, he, like, when I ask him to film me, I get an eye roll. And I'm like, listen, it's just you and I. That's it. Nobody else lives here. So,
right.
So how are you feeling with that? Because you do post on social media. I mean, you do have a presence.
Well, I will say I get some help because I do work for a network and they do help me with some things. But for example, this weekend, I don't know when this is going to go on, but you mentioned what the date was. I have a show tonight, tomorrow, and 2 on Saturday for Side Splitters at Wesley Chapel. So if you listen to this, I'd love for you to come out and see me live. But I did a video and then I posted on Instagram and I asked the club to collab with me, and they said yes. And then it goes on their feed and my feed. And then, but I don't have a whole wacky character that I do that is, the girlfriend who is the annoying person at the party character, or whatever character that is. Right. I don't do that, but it's something. I have so many, I work so much. I'm so tired. I want to cut out some work. I don't want to add another job. Like I have a full-time job on TV as a host. And during COVID, they stopped having full-time hair, makeup people, and various other support that we had initially. So I had to learn how to do, and doing your hair and makeup for a live stand-up show is not at all like doing it for live TV in 50 million homes, high definition TV. That's a different job. And so I had to learn how to do that job. So I learned how to do that job. And then learning the social media job is the editing and the posting. It's a lot. I've hired people. I have paid money for people to do clips of me. But here's the other thing. I do a ton of crowd work. And I also, like, if I post it, a lot of it is not, I don't know if it would be acceptable to my TV job. So I'm really very careful about what I post. Now, if I stopped doing that job, my full-time TV job, and just did stand-up, it sounds like just did stand-up, which is 50,000 other jobs, then I would probably be freer with what I posted. But I'm very careful not to have something be too controversial or, what I do in my live show, I do in my live show. I just don't post a lot about it because it's a little crazy.
Right. Well,
as you've seen.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do find it fascinating because when we started and then YouTube came about, and I remember, thinking to myself, and not that I had that long of an act to begin with, but I remember kind of thinking to myself, like, why would you put your whole act up there? People would put their, 20 minutes and whatever. And at least with the crowd work, it's usually unique, right? You're pretty much not
right.
The same
it's
thing.
A one and done situation.
Right. Or maybe a different variation of and stuff like that. So now even though there's the critique of, but it's just crowd work, but it's like, yeah, because you don't want to burn through material and you don't want to put your stand up there other than like a minute. That's what I think, but I know people are now and like big people are putting their specials on YouTube. By the way, I have no idea how you monetize on that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that. And you would think as an accountant, like that would be my wheelhouse.
I actually do know my husband figured it out, but I don't monetize on it because there's only so many hours in the day. But I'll tell you what I did do is a friend of mine started a company called Open Bar. It's like Dry Bar, only you can kind of say whatever you want. Okay. And his name is Ron Feingold. And if you guys go to openbarcomedy.com or Open Bar on Facebook, it's tons and tons of free content and a lot of nationally touring headliners that aren't famous but are good, that work on like cruise ships. Kind of that's the level that I think of myself as, not famous but competent enough to make a living at it. That there's like tons of those kind of brilliant people like Dennis Regan and Steve White and people that are just really, really funny, but never like hit as like, oh, they're the guy from What's Happening or whatever sitcom is 30 years later or whatever. So he taped the show, clipped it up, and has all these clips, and I use them as like, hey, come see the show. Here's a clip. But again, I'm really careful, not because I want to burn, not because I'm even so worried about burning material. It's like, that's pretty spicy. That's pretty edgy. I have to kind of always have that in the back of my head because of my regular job. And the reason I'm doing my regular job is it's hard to leave a job that it's so fun. You go to a TV studio and you talk about like, makeup and hair and clothes with your friends, and it's live TV, and I really enjoy that also. So I really love that job. So I don't want to jeopardize that job, but I love stand-up too. And which is kind of more like my mental therapy, Ellen. I don't know if I feel like that's what it is for you watching your show. I felt like a kindred spirit. Not that our acts are anything alike, but I was like, she's working it out up there. And I that's what I like, the kind of stand-up I like. It's about you working it out in your head so your head doesn't explode. Right. That's what I got from you.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I like entertaining people, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, you were wildly entertaining.
Thank you. And even if, you don't relate in terms of like, well, that didn't happen to that person, which is fine.
I found it very relatable.
But it's fun. Either you relate or it's at least familiar to you. Like I'm not saying something so like out
right. I mean, I'm not part of the Greek Orthodox community, and I don't have a million relatives. Like I have a very different life, but I related to the way you said it. But it was personal and unique, and that's the kind of comedy that I like. Oh my gosh, it's like you're kind of dipping into somebody else's life.
Yeah.
I know it's such a different game than where we have all these rules that we follow, those of us who've been doing it a long time, that other people don't follow. Like, don't do other people's material.
Right.
The feature act shouldn't sell material. Shouldn't sell merchandise. There's all these like little tiny rules that I try not to be like, oh, wait a minute, I can't object to that because now that makes me a bitch. So I'm like, oh, sure, do whatever you want. Like I find myself trying to adjust and adapt, but stand-up had a bunch of rules when we started, and you followed those rules. If you went 1 minute over when you were on stage in New York City, you were ass out of that club.
Yep. And, for women, it was very taboo to talk about, your period and your depression and, on. Now, I still don't do things, really things like that. But I had already like in my head, like I felt like everything I said, couldn't go to a dark place. And now there's a lot of female comics. They're on Netflix, that are very dark.
Like Hannah Gadsby.
And they say
perfect example of that.
And and again, to each his own. Comedy is subjective. I never went down the real, I'm going to just say well, to me it was gross, but just real, like, with sex and all that, body parts, and like I never went hard on that because that's just not me.
Yeah, I
But,
haven't either, but
but it was
but like you,
taboo.
I'm not judging people that
Right,
have.
right. But it was taboo.
Mhm.
And, and I'll use her an example. She's incredibly famous and wealthy and writes her own ticket. But like Amy Schumer, was
Mhm.
one of the people that broke out of that box. Now, that didn't mean that there weren't dirty female comics. There were plenty of them, but they weren't being really a household name. I mean, Elaine Boozler from back in the day is a clean comic. Wendy Liebman, all Paul Poundstone, like all these women were squeaky clean.
Mhm.
Incredibly talented and funny. So it was very, very different. And sometimes I see the young ladies, and I'm like, whoa, that takes balls to say. And the humor is different, though. That generation, they're like, I don't know, they like that. Obviously, they like that. The whole auditorium is filled up.
Yeah.
So it's a different mindset. But again, to each his own. We have an audience, that we have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like music, some people like
Yeah,
country, some people
totally,
like pop, some people
totally.
like, I mean, there's a place for everybody. And I'm the kind of comedian where I can work clean. I work for Helen America Cruise Line. Somebody saw me at a club, asked me to, I had to do 45 minutes clean and then a second show, another different 30 minutes clean. And that was a lot for me to do. And also clean, I think, does that just mean no cursing? And
Right,
like, is that subjective? And there was no clear definition. And also there's a lot of like communities in Florida where you could get these fairly high paying jobs at, older community clubhouses, but they're all clean. And again, I feel like clean is just not cursing and smiling while you're doing your act. you know?
well, because I do the Greek churches.
Yes,
That's
yes, you
I mean,
do.
that's
Yes.
just out, right? I mean, it's just out. So, which is fine. It's fine. And I kind of bill myself as a clean comedian. But as you saw when we were down at the Crane Theater, I say whatever I want, I'll drop the F bombs. Like that's my idea for me of like joy.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not
Yeah.
going into like the sex thing or anything like that or the body parts. It's just going to be like I get to say crap and F and this and that. I want to ask you, so what happened to make you move from LA to Florida?
So I was touring with two other women in a show called Three Blonde Moms. It was Joan Fagan who thought of the idea. She was the producer, and another comedian named Mary Ellen Hooper, who's brilliant, and myself. And we sort of put our eggs in this basket. We toured for 4 years. We had a big manager, we were with ICM. Our manager was Rick Messina, who managed us, Tim Allen, and Drew Carey, and we went to Montreal and we sold out a theater, and we were ahead of our time. I mean, it would have been in social media world. We had a sponsor. Swab sponsored our tour,
Oh,
but
wow.
then the band broke up. So Mary Ellen left the group, and she didn't want to be in the group anymore. And in those 4 years, she is very, very brilliant. And she would, watch my show and give me notes and, kind of mentor me and like bring my level up to this level that I needed to be. And I think without that experience, I don't think I would have pushed myself to to keep really hard, getting better, kill, you gotta, if without her, but without her in the show, everything kind of fell apart. And I was at the time, I told you I've been married a bunch of times, married to somebody else, and I was a sole breadwinner once again, always the sole breadwinner until now. My husband now actually has a job, but I was a sole breadwinner, and I was a mom at the time. Then I had a child that I was supporting and a husband, and then this show fell apart, and I wasn't auditioning for commercials or TV at the time because I was on the road making a living on the road with this group. And then when the group fell apart, I had nothing, and it was 2008, and then the crash hit at 2008. And I also used to do a lot of corporate stuff. I had a manager at the time who was very in the corporate industry, and that went away. And I just needed to support my family. and TV hosting is something that I'd been fairly successful at. And I just wanted a steady job that was indoors in air conditioning, because a lot of these hosting jobs are DIY painting a house, and I don't like being outdoors. And I wanted, and I said to my agent, where are the shopping channels at? Because I watched them to fall asleep because they were so boring. I have insomnia, it would help me sleep. I said I could do that job, only I could make it interesting. And QVC was in Pennsylvania. It was too cold, and HSN was in Florida. It was warm. So I told my agent to send my tape there. And my agent was like, what? Why on earth would you want to do that? You know, like they were very like, are you out of your mind? And I was like, I think that's a good mom job. I'll be on TV. I'll make a decent living. And then, and it coincidentally, the network had hired someone to cast new hosts that were more entertainment forward. And he used to be the head of casting and entertainment at E! And I had hosted a show for E!, a guy named Dan Gibson, who's a wonderful casting director. And he got my tape and he was like, are you kidding me? You would do this? I was like, yeah, in a heartbeat. And then he flew me out there. I had one audition and then they hired me. I didn't even meet anybody. I didn't have a call back. And I started there, and I've been a host there for 16 years now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you have any relatives in Florida or anything? Or just you and your husband and your child?
Nope. I knew nobody. I brought my daughter with me, and I soon got a divorce soon afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So I raised her as a single mom. And then I met my husband. You know, I had lots of boyfriends, but I was single for about a decade. Met my husband now. We met online on Match. And we're married now. It'll be 5 years this October. And but it was a way to kind of stabilize. And, you know, my daughter went to college, graduated from college. Now she hates Florida and moved back to LA, which is the thing that in my life that makes me sad, because I love her and miss her so much. Yeah. But Florida's not an easy place if you're a liberal to live.
Now, where part do you live? On the West Coast, East Coast?
I live in the Tampa, St. Pete area.
Tampa, St. Pete. Okay. So
yeah, near where Snappers, where you worked.
Oh, do you live in that up in Tarpon by or
no.
No. Or south? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I won't be specific because believe it or not, people try to hunt me down.
Yeah. So, well, so
I know that's a lot.
I have like so many questions. But first of all, it is a testament to how talented you are that all of these opportunities did come your way. I mean, obviously you've busted your ass, you know, to put it bluntly. But I'm so impressed, you know, because of course, when I met you, we didn't get to talk like this. I'm so impressed for your tenacity and your chutzpah. So now going back to that first question of moving to LA, this is you, like you seem to go where you need to be, or, you know, where an adventure can, you know, take you. But going to Florida, as you know, a lot of New Yorkers have defected to Florida, you know, to all parts. I mean, mainly the East Coast, you know, from like Boca down, and then Boynton or whatever the top point is there, and or however far north everybody goes. And then I know a lot of people have gone to Naples, like that's a, you know, booming place and stuff. So if in full disclosure, if I told my husband that I wanted to move to Florida tomorrow, he would go. He, you know, we've lived in New York a really long time. I still love New York, although I can give you a list of things that are not good. And that's just a reality. That's not it being a liberal or a conservative or whatever. It's just like these things need to be fixed. And if they're not fixed, you're not going to have the same New Yorkers here that you've had all this time that have brought the city up to where it is. So, and of course, you know, Florida, but people are going to Tennessee, Texas. And again, this is my accounting brain. This is because they have no state income taxes.
Oh yeah, it's a
Although
big difference.
it
I
makes,
mean,
well, especially when you compare California and New York, which are the
right.
highest tax states, and if you're making any kind of substantial money, it's a lot. But what I am hearing about Florida is that home insurance has become crazy to get, and the HOAs, and it's getting crowded, and the roads, because more people have moved there, and all this other kind of stuff.
Well, I will say we did live in a condo right on the beach, and we left that to move back to a house because the HOAs are getting crazy. That is true. And during COVID and post-COVID, real estate went up exponentially.
Right.
Like when I moved here, I felt like I was shopping on the Temu app. It was like everything was like I was like, oh my God, I'm like a King Midas here. Everything was like free. I couldn't believe how cheap everything was because I was living in LA.
Right.
But
Right.
now it's really gotten, but I bought in
Uh-huh.
before all that.
Right. Right.
Uh so it's a great place to live as a comedian because if you do a little cruise ships, which I find to be really fun to do, if you like to do these communities that are, you do a show in a clubhouse, the money's really good. People are just really happy to be entertained. There's some excellent comedy clubs like McCurdy's, Snappers, and Off the Hook, and Vasani's, and there's so many like really great comedy clubs. There's a new club called LOL, Laugh Out Lounge, which is a really fun new club. And
Where's that? Where's that?
it's in Winter Haven. It's in Winter Haven, and there's another one actually kind of in the Panhandle called Beaches Comedy Club that I heard Jackie Cation is going to be there, and I was like, oh, I gotta look that up. By the way, that's a great podcast. Also, if you love podcasting and women podcast, is the Jackie and Laurie show. I don't know if you've ever listened to that. They talk about exactly women comics, and they're of a certain age. We don't have to tell people's ages. But Jackie Cation and Laurie Kilmartin have had this, I think, for like 9 years. They've had it forever.
Oh, yeah, Laurie, I know from here. Yeah.
So that's and I like listening to their podcast because they talk about how they struggle with social media on every episode, and it makes me feel like, okay, it's hard for everybody.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I've done Off the Hook. I did do Snappers, and I've done some Greek churches. I did the Boca Black Box on the East Coast. That was my own show, that I produced in the smaller room. And yeah, I mean, it's, again, wherever it is, it's still a struggle, there's a lot.
There's no TV or film here, though. If you do TV or film, forget it. When I first moved here, there was tons of production, and then the law changed. When I first moved here, I did a movie, The Tooth Fairy 2 with Larry the Cable Guy. I got an agent right away. I started auditioning. I got a movie. I thought, oh my God, this would be great. I'm going to do movies on this side. And then the law changed very soon after I moved here. Maybe in 2010, the law changed, and all the tax breaks for production went away. So everybody moved to Atlanta, and I was so bummed about that.
That was a bad move by whoever did that. Especially now.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, look, you to tell us about if as much as you can about the HSN job. And let me just say, as a viewer, I will be lying in bed at night, and I will flip the channels. And if there's anything that's chocolate, because I love chocolate. Chocolate's my first love. And it's basically all I've got left in life. And Halloween, I love Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
And even though, like, I live in an apartment, so I really can't have much. And even the Christmas stuff. I will stop, sometimes jewelry, sometimes a good pair of pajamas or whatever, but I will find, because they sell so many items, right? Like if there's like patio furniture, I don't care, obviously, but that chocolate that I spent one night, it had to be about 6 months ago. They were chocolate covered pretzels, but all different ones, with, I don't know, peanut butter and this and that. I watched it for an hour. It was the most ridiculous thing I was so it was like I could taste it. So the next question is, did you order it? No, because my phone wasn't next to my bed and I didn't feel like getting out of bed. But other than that, although I thought about it, oh my God. So, but it's a huge business, and people that have new products, kill to get on those shows.
True.
Such a big viewership. So how is that for you? And I mentioned one more thing. It just popped into my head. Actually, there's a manager that I know, and they had sent me something to audition. And again, me and about a bazillion other women, but it was the one in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia.
Right. I don't work there, so I don't know much about how that goes.
But I was like, but I don't live there. It was like, I don't live there.
Yeah.
You have to live there or live someplace near there. It's, but now I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? Maybe not such a bad idea next time the opportunity comes around. But it's a skill set, and you have to talk the entire time. You are the commercial and the show.
Well, there's no teleprompter or cue cards or anything. You just talk off the top of your head. And I usually do 3 hours.
Oh my God.
2 at least 3 hours usually. And you have a guest, but you do have to always know what you're talking about, what you're going to say next. But it's also like we're having a conversation right now. You never run out of things to say. I'm very purposeful because I have to make sure that the person who's the guest on my show is giving them the information to the people watching. And if they don't, I need to, coax it out of them like, oh, what about this? And does it do this? And who's this for? And how do you turn it on? And, I need to make sure that all that information gets out. So it's, there's a kind of a rhythm to it that once you get in the rhythm, but I will say if you get too much in the rhythm, it's easy to tune the person out. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty disruptive in what I do because I want to entertain you and have you keep paying attention, whether or not you're buying anything. Mm-hmm. Because I think that it really is kind of a public service in a way. I mean, every time I turn on the news, it's some horrific thing that I don't want to think about. And before you go to sleep at night, or in the middle of the day, like you turn on, sometimes you just want to zone out and be happy. And it's really products that are kind of like happiness based. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want this lovely perfume that make you happy? Do you want this beautiful top that's going to make you happy? Right. Do you want these delicious chocolate covered pretzels that are going to make you happy? It's that kind of thing all the time. And I like living in that world rather than rather than in other world, rather than in reality.
You're not.
I guess I don't live in reality.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, I have to mute commercials. Because commercials, and we were talking about that earlier, like another great tie-in is that you used to see products on TV, everyday things you use, shampoo, mascara, this, that, celebrities, and
now it's pharmaceuticals.
And everything is a medication. And they get graphic about it. Mm-hmm. Like, this is going to happen to you. And I won't, it's like, it's so gross. I don't even want to repeat it, but it's just like, and then if this is to keep from killing yourself. But if you feel like killing yourself while you're taking this medication to keep from killing yourself, I don't know. You're screwed.
Well, there was actually a law that was passed that allowed pharmaceutical companies to directly market to patients.
That's when it changed.
And that's when everything changed. And the other people couldn't kind of keep up financially. And the ad time was bought by the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that was one of the big shifts in commercials is when that law happened.
Yeah.
And before that, I mean, when we were growing up, I remember commercials being really fun and catchy and, like that beer commercial where everybody's like, what's that? And like, like the Kool-Aid guy walking through the wall. It was all these funny pop culture kind of moments. And now it's like, this can cause depression and you take the pill for depression. You're right. It's a bummer.
Right. Or, this will sustain you for the next 6 months of your life. And after that, that's it. You're done. So you might as well get your affairs in order. Like, I can't even relate. It's like
your affairs in order.
It's all right.
Yeah, you're right. And so when people turn on our channel, they're going to be like, oh, her hair's bouncy. I wonder what she uses, and her, look how, how old did she say she is? Oh my gosh, what skincare does she use? It's a fun thing. It's not like that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I do love makeup and cream and, anything that if I think that something can vanish something on this face, I am all in for it. So who's primarily your audience? Is it
It's women. It is primarily women.
Women like 40 and up where I mean,
it's hard to say exactly because there is a core customer age, but maybe 40 and up, but I'm always surprised when young people recognize me and say that they've seen me. I think sometimes people used to watch shopping channels with their mom or their grandma, then they start watching it. And, there's also niche audiences, like we do like coin shows, coin collectors. They'll just tune in for those shows and then they won't watch any of the other shows. They'll be very focused on that, or electronic shows. I mean, I think different shows even have different demographics. Like we'll have a young cosmetic brand that's very like Tarte Cosmetics, or that's very like, oh, I got, and then you'll get like one demographic watching that, and then you'll have Lancome, and then that's okay, and then that's kind of everybody, a bigger, huge brand, and it is kind of brand by brand, but in general, I would say it's women, and I would say it's not like teens and tweens. I think they're on TikTok and Instagram. I think it is women 40 and up.
Yeah. What's the show? I'm on if I had a production team here on HBO that the woman from Saturday Night Live was it Vanessa Bayer?
I Love This For You.
I Love This For You. That's it. That show is awesome. I'm assuming it's coming back another season. It was like 2 seasons or something.
It was fun. It was not at all realistic at all, but it was fun. I did watch that. I mean, to me, one of the most realistic shows is Hacks.
On my list.
It is one of the people. I've had people say, it's kind of like I've so many similarities with that lead character, except she was obviously a big famous person, but working, being a single mom, having one daughter, and then also working on a shopping channel, and then traveling and touring and doing stand-up. I don't think that there is anyone on the planet besides me and Joan Rivers who have ever experienced what that exact set of dynamics is like. Because Joan Rivers had her own line at QVC for decades.
That's how she became wealthy. That's what I had read, when she had passed away. I mean, because she had a huge apartment on Fifth Avenue, and she had amassed a lot of wealth. But anyway,
she did really well in personal appearances as well.
Yeah. I'm in awe of your career. I think it's amazing, and I love.
I'm tired.
Well,
I'll split it with you.
I mean, I'm tired too, and I don't have the gigs that you do, so I don't know what the hell my excuse is. But I love, because I really wasn't sure about the Florida dynamic. And I love that you've really you've made your mark in that. And I mean, the good news about a lot of people coming there is more people will come to shows. You know what I mean? More people will, so there'll be more of a need, well, which is good. I did do one of those communities in Jacksonville, not Ponte Verde, right outside of Jacksonville, in February. And it was, I've done some stuff up here, obviously, but that was my first one in Florida. And I did 3 1-hour shows. They told me no cursing, no nothing. But I was able to do the same material. So that was good. But it was funny after the first show, the manager, because I'm insecure. So I was like, oh, see, I did it clean. He goes, why? And I go, because that's what the contract said. And he goes, oh, you're like the first person to read the contract. I'm like, really? Like, so people came in here and dropped the F-bomb.
Well, that's why I said to you, clean, they mean no cursing and then smiling. I mean, you can get away with a lot of stuff, but I will say, I don't know if there are agents down here that if you you showcase. They do these big showcases. Now, I haven't done this because I can't guarantee I'm going to be available if I was successful at this showcase, but you do a showcase, and I have friends that have done them. You don't get paid to be on the showcase, but all these buyers from all these community centers come, and you can get jam-packed like months of work from them.
Okay, so
and it pays pretty well.
I did do that. I did do that a few years ago. I had
Yeah.
a set and bupkis. And when I followed up with the people, the producers, the bookers, yeah, and nothing. So I don't know. Listen, the universe is telling me that I should not be in this all the time, every day.
No,
And
you're
I
very
still keep
funny. You should definitely
I
be in
still
this.
keep on going. No
Do you live
representation.
in Manhattan? Is
Yeah.
your apartment in Manhattan?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, so how long have you lived in Manhattan?
My whole life.
Your entire life?
Pretty
Did
much.
you go to like elementary school and high
Yes.
school in Manhattan?
Yeah, not high school. High school, my parents had moved to the suburbs. And then I went to college in New Jersey, and then I moved back to the city.
Wow.
So yeah. But
That's
and elementary school, I lived here. I went to a Greek parochial school, so it was very intense.
I mean, living in Manhattan is, especially as one gets older, to be able to walk to the grocery store, the corner store, it's like there's nowhere else you could have that. Like if I were you, I would never move.
So that's so funny. Oh my God, use like a fly on the wall. So, there's so many reasons why I love it here. Aside from like my sisters live here and, my family's here and all this other kind of stuff. I really hate to drive. I do drive. We have a car. We park it on the street. I don't even want to tell you what that's like.
I've had a car in New York City that I parked on the street. I know what that's like. That's a nightmare.
Nothing's changed from the time you were here today. It's the same. It's actually, it's worse because now we have bikes and we have, bikes that have taken up spaces and all this stuff. But anyway, but I am so used to in my life to walk out. I need mascara. I need walk around the corner. If I have to take a bus cross town, whatever. I like public transportation. I'm a trains, planes, bus kind of person. So when my husband once in a while will say that, or I have an uncle that lives in Naples, my mother-in-law lives in Boynton, and he's like, look at this. And I'm like, I have to like the driving. I can't be in the car. I hate being in a car. If someone's doing the driving, I'm fine. But I don't want to get in the car because I fucking forgot paper towels. Like I'll lose my mind, and that is a huge thing. Plus walking, I work out at the gym, but it keeps you going. You know what I'm saying? It's
absolutely. The sedentary life of not being able to go anywhere unless you get in a car. And also lately we've had so much rain. There's been so much flooding here. I have two good friends that have lost their cars because they tried to drive through a puddle and their car got totaled. Wow. It's just, I mean, I'm not, you can always rent a house by the beach for a month.
Yeah.
Don't give up that New York apartment, girl.
I know. I feel that way too. And I've given my husband the message, so I think he kind of gets it. But so give us your social media, where you're going to be in the next couple of months. And you mentioned cruises also. So if anybody takes a cruise, they should, perhaps look for you. You're on Holland America. Is that your line?
I actually have to look to see where I am. I don't know where I am today. So I work for Holland America. I did one ship for them and I got greenlit for all their ships. So I was very, very excited about that. And I booked another one and my daughter came with me, which was so fun. And so I'll be in Holland America, January 25th, February 1st. My website is helenkeaney.com.
Okay.
So that's where you can see where I am. This weekend, I'm at Side Splitters in Wesley Chapel, which is a great place. Side Splitters is one of the best rooms in the country. The Tampa room is unbelievable. I work there as well, and they get amazing acts. A lot of New York acts, like Joe List works there all the time, and Jim Norton, all these Bobby Kelly, like all these guys, and they get like Lynn Koplitz and April Macy. I just think it's a really good club comedians, and then I'm all over the place. So I've got Snappers coming up in Fort Myers. That's coming up next month. And I'm sure there's a million things I'm forgetting, but my Instagram is the official Helen Keaney. The official Helen Keaney. I don't know if there's unofficial Helen Keaneys, but I think it was maybe a joke when I signed up for it because, again, someone did it for me. I have a funny story. A casting director was like, "What's your email?" And I gave him an AOL email, and he said, how do you still have AOL?" And he goes, "You can have a Gmail account." He goes, you can say, your Helen Keaney and your Gmail, whatever. And he created a Gmail email for me, and I still use it to this day. And it was a casting director who couldn't believe that I was on AOL. So I'm not great at that stuff. But the official Helen Keaney at on Instagram, and on Facebook, I'm Helen Keaney Comedy, and then Helen Keaney HSN is all my HSN stuff, and I do keep it very separate.
Helen is a very Greek name.
It is, and my middle name is Penelope,
which is another Greek name.
Right. My dad, the English professor, my mom and dad wanted me to be beautiful like Helen of Troy and patient like Penelope. It was a very literary kind of thing rather than Greek, because my dad's Jewish and my mom's like a German atheist, whatever. I wasn't raised religiously, but they were intellectuals. My sister's a professor too. My parents are it was a very intellectual decision.
Well, I can see you are a smarty as well. So you are just like them. Yeah, wow, Helen Penelope, that is very Greek.
It is.
And then, well, if you had married a Greek man, if the first husband was Greek and then you kept his name,
right, I would be in.
You'd be
Tarpon Springs. I could do every Tarpon Springs show.
Right, we'd be doing Greek churches together.
Yeah,
so that's great. Well, listen, I want you to hang on. I'm gonna after I stop for a minute, but thank you so much. This was a joy. I could have talked to you forever. Helen is very busy. She has TV shows to do and comedy shows to do. So we are very grateful that she gave us her time. And go to her Instagram, the official Helen Keaney, Keaney, and Facebook, Helen Keaney Comedy. And I am Ellen Karis. We both have the same Greek name. Eleni is our Greek name. I go by the American name of Ellen, and I'm at Greek Chick Comic, so I didn't do the whole official thing. That's Twitter and Instagram, and then Ellen Karis, Greek Goddess of Comedy, or go to my website, ellenkaris.com. Thank you, everybody. I told you we were going to have guests, and I mean, did I deliver or what, huh? All right, tune in next week. You never know who's going to pop up. All right, thank you very much. Till next time, bye.